Okay, so I haven't been around as much of late. There is videos like in the editing process and some still in the research process for long form content that I just simply haven't had the time to get to as of late. I started a new job recently. And as for short form, there's actually stuff in the drafts waiting to be posted, as well as a load of ideas I have. And I just kind of get to stuff when I have time. And I've got a bit of time today. So we're going to do something for International Women's Day. And normally on International Women's Day or International Men's Day, I'll bring up a favourite figure of mine and then I'll give a positive message. But I thought, why not just give you a load of figures? Not action figures, historical figures. I suppose you knew that already. Let's just get into it. We start off strong with Catherine of Aragon, one of my favourite women in history. She quite literally, while Henry VIII was off gallivanting in France and trying to do Henry VIII stuff, Catherine of Aragon helped defend England from a Scottish invasion. And not only did she win, she wanted to send, like, the severed head of the Scottish king to Henry to be like, look what I did. And then all of the English, like, noblemen around her were like, that's messed up. And she was like, fine, I'll just send the coat, you bunch of wimps. And that, I just fell in love with her when I learnt that fact alone. It's a very violent fact, and they're probably going to very quickly see a theme of the women in history I like coming up. Can we also remember that Henry fumbled his attractive Spanish wife, who defeated the Scottish? It's definitely not the worst thing Henry did, but you get my point. I just hate Henry VIII. Ethelfled, Lady of the Mercians, the woman who expanded the Kingdom of Mercia, which was kind of subject under, like, the Kingdom of Wessex and her brother at this point. But yeah, she was so fearsome that, like, the Vikinger of York were going to surrender to her pretty much without a fight, although she sadly passed away before that could happen, and then her brother pulled some shenanigans and then integrated Mercia into the Kingdom of Wessex, pretty much forming the Kingdom of England, and then, like, her daughter was then pushed into, like, a nunnery, possibly, maybe, we don't really know what happened to her daughter, but yeah, Ethelfled, Lady of the Mercians, like, quite literally enamoured everyone in her kingdom as a woman at a time when, like, that was nearly impossible. Like, everyone was like, yeah, no, she's cool. One of the greatest leaders in the entire history of the British Isles. Saint Olga of Kiev, the legend who, upon hearing that her husband had been unalived by the Drevlians, I mean, he was trying to collect taxes from them, so I know, mildly justified, but, you know, she realised she had a young son, and the leader of the Drevlians, who had just unalived her husband, wanted to marry her, so she went off on a little mission, getting revenge repeatedly. I go into more detail on my YouTube channel with the two parts I did on her, but yeah, which culminates in, like, her, like, going, I've got my revenge, it's fine, just let your city surrender, and then when the city surrenders, she burns it to the ground, and everyone who tries to escape is, like, either unalived or enslaved. She then goes to the Eastern Roman Emperor. The Eastern Roman Emperor fancies the pants off her, like proper simps, and then, she ran rings around him, like, and then still he simps for her and gives her a load of stuff. Despite having a wife, but that's not St. Olga's fault that he was a bit, you know, scummy. Yeah. She also became a saint because she started spreading the Orthodox Christian faith. Yeah, very based woman. Julie de Albany. Now, she is a legend, a swashbuckling legend. In fact, one of the many men that she duelled ended up falling in love with her, despite, like, oh, she really badly wounded him. Imagine, like, in a time of sexism, beating and humiliating a man, and then he's like, I fancy you. In fact, she garnered such respect that she found her way up to the high levels of aristocracy and was an actress, although she did sadly pass away quite young. In fact, one time she, like, fully mugged off a load of geezers in a ballroom because she was chatting to a lady that they liked. Yeah, she's just such a cool woman. You know, she was French, but everyone has their drawbacks. Marianne Bachmeier. Now, Marianne Bachmeier's daughter was sadly unalived by a horrific man who had, I believe, already been in the justice system already. So, not wanting him to get a lighter sentence or get away with it, Marianne Bachmeier made sure that her daughter got justice and shot her daughter's unaliver in the courtroom. And when asked later what her only regret was, she said she wished she'd got to look him in the eyes so that he knew it was her that did it. Her story does get a lot sadder as it goes on, but she did get vengeance and justice for her daughter. And rest in peace to them both. Catherine the Great. Now, I have really mixed emotions about Catherine the Great. Like, she starts off as this great leader escaping her husband's evil clutches. She's a massive reformer. She wants to liberate the serfs. She pushes forward women's education. She starts a vaccine program. She doesn't force anyone into it. And she smashes the Ottomans repeatedly, trying to reform the Eastern Roman Empire. And that makes anyone based in my book. I mean, you could just fight the Ottoman Empire and be happy with you. But the thing is, I mean, her enemies would then start using her sexual exploits against her because they're all terrified of her. And no, she didn't have relations with a horse, and she didn't unalive by that either. She unalived by a stroke. But she also went back on her trying to help the serfs because she realised an educated population doesn't like authoritarian governments. And, you know, a little while later, you get the Soviets. So that went well, didn't it, Catherine? And by that went well, that's me being sarcastic. That went well for no one. Not the upper classes, not the lower classes. You just got gulagged. Yay. But, aside from her authoritarianism, she also unalived an awful lot of Polish people. So yeah, she kind of undoes a lot of the good stuff she did. Yeah. Qin Shi, the pirate queen of the South China Sea, who may or may not have been real. I go into that in more detail on my video on YouTube. But if she was real, she was really cool. Aside from getting with her adoptive son, that's a bit weird, to be fair. Grace O'Malley, or Granny Mule, the pirate queen of Ireland, who, when the English aristocracy was coming for her, went to Queen Elizabeth I, refused to bow, and then didn't get beheaded, instead gained the respect of Elizabeth I, and then Elizabeth I pulled back all of the English aristocracy that was attacking and, imprisoning Grace O'Malley, and I think unalived one of her sons. From an early age, she was, obsessed with sailing the seas and becoming the pirate queen and screwing over the English, and then kind of has a semi-alliance with Elizabeth I. Yeah, her story is a wild one. Anne Bonny, yes, the pirate who helped Edward Kenway, except he didn't. I've just realised Mary Read should have been on this list as well. Mary Read, whose story I'm doing alongside Anne Bonny's very quickly because I'm running out of time. But Mary Read and Anne Bonny were very successful in a golden age of piracy where women really weren't, on decks. It was a male-dominated industry, piracy. And they both had very successful piracy careers. Sadly for Mary Read, she would pass away in prison. But I think Anne Bonny lived a decent life afterwards. Yeah, their stories end sad. But they were very powerful women. Mary, Queen of Scots, who is possibly one of my favourites purely because this film exists. But yeah, she had an amazing history, a very sad life, and there's, in an alternate universe, very possibly could have united Scotland and France, and if history follows the same similar pattern, would have caused a horrific alternate universe where Scotland, England and France are one nation. But yeah, in our timeline, she altered British history entirely. Her bloodline especially did. And she went toe-to-toe with Queen Elizabeth I. She did lose that battle, but she suffered great adversity in her own kingdom. Quite literally getting forced to the side for her son. So yeah, amazing Scottish monarch and one of the best figures in British history. Cleopatra VII, the Greek pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt, who did massive reforms, boosted the Egyptian economy, and got Julius Caesar and Marcus Antonius to simp for her, and she very nearly made Egypt the centre of modern European history instead of Rome. If Marcus Antonius had actually been a bit less of a twat, she would have achieved that. But the stuff she did on her own, especially when she went to Rome and the Roman Senate was like, what? And she was like, yeah, I'm here. She was cool. She was cool. Anyways, we're about to run out of time, so I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.